Hi everyone. Let's go ahead and take a look at Adobe Illustrator, cracking it open for the first time. So with the Adobe Illustrator open, and I've selected the icon on the tray, the AI, and with it opened up, you'll note here that I have some content sitting already on my desktop. The line that is horizontal along the bottom here, this is content that I've previously created. The space up above that runs horizontal, this is a collection of preset sized templates for different types of content output. What we need to do, and the most thing that you'll do when you open up Adobe Illustrator the first time on a new program, is you'll generally always go right here immediately to create new. You'll use open if you're going to open something that was pre-existing. But for today, again, we're going to do create new. So I'll click on that. Now I get a pop-up window, and with this pop-up window, I have different sizes or different types of letter sizes that I have here already preset. You'll note on the right-hand side here, up above here, I can go ahead and I can change the name. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to test. And down below, where it says width and height and inches. Now, if yours might say points, yours might say pixels, whichever it happens to be, they all mean the same thing. And the designation or the size description ends up here on the width and height. For mine, I'm going to go and change mine to inches. That way I can clearly see 8.5 by 11. Next to that, I have the orientation of vertical, horizontal. And I have here under the number of artboards. So I can have the number of artboards or areas where I'll be creating content. I can have multiple ones on the screen. But for right now, I'm going to keep it at 1. Now the space below here where it says bleed, this we'll talk about later. This gets into publishing. We'll talk about that later in the semester. Below we have advanced options down here with their color mode. Now you have 2 color modes to choose from, RGB and CMYK. Simply put, CMYK is physical ink. So if anything is going to be set for printing, you want CMYK. But if you're creating content that's strictly for the web, you'll want RGB. RGB is a smaller file size, but it's not meant for printing. If you try to print with an RGB created document, your colors will be off because your colors are not calibrated for print ink, which is again CMYK. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with CMYK, and my raster factor or my pixels per inch, I'm going to go ahead and keep that basically. I've got it high right now, but I can set it for medium or for low for 72 or extremely low for 36. 72 is generally the minimum you'd want to have for web screen content, but if you're going to have something for print, you definitely want a 300 ppi, and that's pixels per inch. So let's go ahead and I'll click off the side, and preview mode, we're going to keep that in default. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create, and I'll take a moment here. When it opens up, we're going to go ahead and have an artboard, and with the artboard, then we'll go ahead and change the format of the artboard or the tools that we use the artboard with. When we open up the program, as you can see here, it's just done now. On the upper right-hand side, that's usually the first place you're going to want to go, because this little box right here tells you what tools are out in the program for you to use based on your need. Now, you can change the tools at any time you'd like. There are so many tools in the program, you need to be able to put some things away and bring things out, and this is a shortcut just for that. So if I wanted to trace an object, I can certainly keep it here. But anytime I can go and click on that, and I can click for essentials, I can click for layout, I can go and click on, again, on typography, I can click on painting, and you can see each time I did that, we got different tools that came out. Different things came out and went away. So let's go back, I'll put it back on tracing. Now, this is the artboard, the space that's in the middle of our area right here. And for the artboard itself, let's talk about first just some quick and simple navigation. To move around and move left, right, up, or down, the easiest way to do that is to hold the space bar, and you'll notice as I do, my cursor becomes a hand, and then I left click my mouse, and then notice my hand becomes a fist. Now I can go ahead and left click and drag this anywhere that I want to. It's a much easier way than grabbing these little scroll bars on the sides here. Left click on the space, or excuse me, left click on the mouse, and then go ahead and click the space bar simultaneously. And you hold those two, space bar and left click mouse. As you can see, I can go anywhere I would like. Now, let's talk about zooming in, zooming out. A quick shortcut for that is on the bottom left-hand side of your keyboard. Depending upon if you have a Mac or a PC, you will have a Command or Control key. You use that key, the Command or Control key, you press that, and then use the plus or minus keys on your keyboard to zoom in or zoom out. So here's the minus key. I'm zooming out, plus key. And it brings it back in and out at smaller intervals. Now, notice the one thing that we will do is that on the lower left-hand side here, you'll notice that the percentage box down here, and this is kind of a longer way to go back in and change the size of your board so that you can see it clearer. It doesn't change the output of the artwork. All it does is it actually just zooms in and zooms out. So we'll go ahead and click on that little arrow that's a drop down next to it, and you can see here all the sizes. I go up to 640,000% larger. You don't really would want that. I can say fit on screen, and that's pretty nice. But again, Control or Command and plus or minus is a quicker way to do that. If you want something specific, yes, you can go in and use that little box down below, but this is going to be the quickest, easiest way to do that. All right. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the things that are on your keyboard up here, up and around you here. On the left-hand side, we have the tools. These are all the tools, and you notice that if I put my cursor over the objects, that it actually says what it is. So I move it over there, and it stops, and it says exactly what it means. Okay. If you've used Photoshop before, the icons in this program are very similar and work very similar to Photoshop. So you're as far as understanding the iconography and the functionality, if you've used Photoshop before, you'll be pretty comfortable at this point. So what I will tell you though is that for each one of these little icons that are here, wherever you see a drop down arrow, which means this little tiny white arrow right there on the corner, wherever you see one of these little arrows, that means there's a sub menu underneath that icon. So I'm going to click on, say, the letter T here. I'm going to do that and select the sub icon. I left click on the mouse and hold, and there are my other tools that are related to the top tool, but I can go down and select one of those to have one of those tools used. So we'll go back and we'll talk about the functionality of each separate tool later. The top of the screen, this is basically where you have your sort of general commands, where that once you picked a tool and you'd like to say, with say a paintbrush, and you'd like to select the fill, right, the area that's the large area, or the stroke, which means the outline of an object or a line, you'd use this box. So fill, which is a flat fill, and stroke, which is, you'll notice it has this black outline around like a frame. It's the outline. Now here next to that, we can change the size of a stroke, right, the thickness of a stroke. We can change the quality of the stroke or the line, right? And here we can also do some sub areas where we can check all kinds of different sub textures for different types of lines. But we'll get more into that later. The next one certainly is the opacity, where you can go ahead and you can change the depth or darkness of it, lightness or darkness of it in terms of its transparency. And then to the right up here, because we're on tracing, we have these tools available to us. We can pick the character type. We can say if it's regular, bold. We can go ahead and do font size, paragraphs, and do the justifications, etc. So there's a lot you can do. So again, with each tool, you're going to change different things up. When I go ahead and again select this, say go back to painting, notice again, now my tools have changed. I've got a palette that's come up, right, for my painting. Now, and if you get a pop-up window, if you have these little windows here and you get these little pop-ups that happen, you can left click and drag them, move them over one of the pre-existing areas. And if you do, notice it glows blue. See that? It glows blue when I get close. When it glows blue, that means I can go ahead and let go of the mouse and it actually will pop it in there. So you can clear up the screen. All right, I've got a little extra thing here that I don't want. Delete that. So I can left click on any one of these little bars. I can move these little boxes, like panels, I can move them around, right? So let's say if I move things around and I move things pretty quickly. So let's say I just as easily as I put a panel in, I can left click and drag a panel out. So these are like tabs on folders. I can left click and I can grab all of these. I can pull them out, move them around, right? I've got all these different things that I can do. But let's just say that I can even drag my artboard and move everything around and go, oh my gosh, my artboard's a mess. Everything's all crazy. How do I find a tool or how do I put things back where they are? There's a way to clean up your artwork area if you've moved the panels around. if we go to Window at the top of the screen, and I left click and I drag down, all the little boxes that are in blue, those are the ones that are active. This shows me all of my panels for all of the different tools. But we can go back in here. If you notice that it says workspace right here, and then I slide over, and these are the same workspaces that we saw on the upper right hand side earlier. But if I go down to the bottom here, see where it says reset? Yeah, because I have painting selected, it says reset painting. If I had tracing selected, it would say reset tracing. But I had painting selected. So let's go say reset painting. And you notice everything just went back. It put all the tools away, put everything back and cleaned up. Okay, it's a one-click cleanup, but it does not affect your artwork. Okay, now on the right side here, if the left-hand side is with the tools, and up above here are basically just basic changing fill, stroke, and outline thickness. The right side here is where we get to fine-tune those tools, where we get to go back and choose subcolors or create custom line thicknesses and create custom collections or menus. So you have all these different other tools here, which are subtools and extra fine-tune information, little palettes here to change things around. So this is sort of your basics for looking at the Adobe Illustrator file. I only have one thing left to show you before I let you go, and that's the bottom right-hand side here, which is your layers panel. Think of your layers in Adobe Illustrator like a deck of cards. The deck of card on top is the one that's closest to you. The card that's on the bottom is down below. We can open up as many layers as we like. On the lower right-hand side here, this little box that has a plus sign in it, this is my create new layer. I click it once, click it twice, click it 3 times. I can create many, many sub-layers on there. Now each layer comes 1, 2, 3, 4, but I can rearrange those. So I can left click on layer 1, drag it above, and now layer 1's on top. I can take layer 2 and drag it between 4 and 3. So you see I have multiple layers. I can go ahead and change their stacking order. What I can also do is change the name. Let's say layer 1, double click on it, and I can say line. There was no line on there, but I can click it just to save it and click off to the side. So you can see I can go back in and I can change the name of the layer. To talk about what's over here on the left-hand side here is that I have this eyeball. And this means that anything that's on there, I can go ahead and draw. So let's really quickly, I'm going to click on the line layer, and I'm going to grab my paintbrush and just draw a squiggle. And there it is. And you notice that the line has appeared on the line layer. Now, if I want to hide that object, I hit this eyeball. It locks, it hides it, bring it back in, click it, goes away, comes back in. To the right of that, there's this little empty box, and it doesn't say anything, but it's actually the lock. You'll notice when my cursor is over it, it says lock editable. So that means I can go ahead and click on that. That means now this object cannot be changed or morphed because it's on this layer. I can draw on the other layers, but this layer, it's protected because it's locked. Now, while it's locked, I can hide it off and on, right? I can go ahead and lock it or unlock it at my discretion. You'll notice that when I move when it is locked, however, and I have the layer selected, I move my cursor over to the artboard, and you'll notice that I have this circle with a slash through it underneath my pencil, which means that basically I have no access to manipulate or change this image, right? I can move it, but I can't redraw. I can't add any new content to it. All right, so if I wanted to go back in and delete that, it's just as simple as selecting that line and then selecting the trash can right below. And it says, yes, do you wish to delete this layer? Yes, I do. And it's gone. So we can add, subtract layers. We can reorder layers. We can go ahead and change our colors. Up above here, we have our fill and our stroke. See, it's using outline, using stroke with a 1-point thickness because we were just using the paintbrush. And from within here, I can go ahead and zoom in, zoom out with a Command or Control plus, minus. And I can go ahead and with my space bar and left click, I can move around left, right, top to bottom. So I'd like you to go ahead and open up your Adobe Illustrator, try these things. In our next video, we'll go into using shapes. Have fun.